So you might be wondering how to make the steel pins that hold up the wall modules. As I've said, you could use bits of cut coat hanger, though you'll need a pair of wire cutters to cut that. But whatever you use, getting a hole through the balsa is going to be tricky. One thing I didn't mention in my how to cut balsa video is balsa is not all the same. Newer balsa tends to be quite soft. You can cut it and do whatever you want with it very quickly, but if your balsa is a bit older, it can be quite hard. And it just varies from batch to batch as well. But what we actually want to do is we want to put a hole through that so we can put our pin through. One really useful thing that you can use for the pins, toothpicks, round toothpicks. You can get for almost no money from pretty much any supermarket. And our pins in real life are 32 millimeter diameter stainless steel tubing. So at 1 to 20, that's 1.6 millimeters. And it just so happens that these toothpicks, here's one I prepared earlier, are, look at that, almost exactly, a little bit bigger, but you won't notice, but they'll do just nicely. So, and they also have a nice sharp point on them. If you have soft balsa, you can literally just, twisting it carefully and kind of pinching it in that direction so it doesn't split. You can literally just poke the balsa straight through it, and there is your pin. And you just need to figure out how you're going to stick that into your base. If you have harder balsa, it's a bit trickier. Just cut a piece of this. If you have harder balsa and you just, come on, you just get a toothpick and try and poke it through, what's probably going to happen is that, which is a real pain if you've gone and cut something to length and sanded it and made it all nice, and then you do that and you've ruined it. So what you kind of need to do in that situation, ideally, is to get a drill bit. That's 1.5 millimeter drill bit should be pretty common to find. Somebody in your household might have one, or the workshop at UTS will definitely have one. I'll bring one in next week, in 2 weeks' time when I see you, but by that stage I'd have hoped you'd have been well on your way, but I'll bring it in anyway. And with the drill bit, you don't need to use it in a drill, you literally just twist it in by hand. So just kind of line it up and just twist it. Twist it backwards and forwards, and there's your hole. And then you can poke your toothpick carefully, again, pinch it that direction through the hole. And even in very stiff balsa, very old balsa, it won't split. To cut your toothpicks to length, I would tend to cut them before I poke them through. So cut one side. Pair of wire cutters is really handy for that sort of thing. You can just go clip. If you don't have that, you can very carefully do it with a knife, but just be a bit careful. If you end up with a raggy edge, just get your sanding block and clean up the end. Sort of pays to do that anyway, so that it's nice and round and flat. And then just carefully twist it in. You can sort of get to about there and put a tiny dot of glue on it and then just twist it in the rest of the way. And there is your pin. And then you might want to paint that bit silver. You paint it silver before you pushed it through, or very carefully afterwards. It'll be down in your model, so you won't see it necessarily if you get a bit of silver paint on things. But that's one way of doing the steel pins.